Mara, did you meet her? No. Did you meet her? Okay.
Hi, Mary Jane. Hello.
Me?
Yes, hello.
Oh, hello. Okay.
Hey, Bill.
Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dangler?
Here.
Mr. Viera?
Here.
Dr. Vogt?
Here.
Dr. Selly?
Here.
Mrs. Wittes?
Here.
I hereby certify that this meeting has been published in the newspaper in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act and posted as required by law.
Thank you. Mr. Allison, could you please come forward? At this time, we're going to discuss our 2017 annual audit report.
Thank you for having me here tonight. I gave a short synopsis of my presentation. I think everyone probably does have the audit report in front of them. The audit report was filed timely by June 30th. It was actually completed on June 27th. So we'll just go briefly through it. I'd like to report that it was a very good audit, clean opinion as far as New Jersey accounting standards go. For those of you who have not been here in the past, pages 1 through 3 of the report is our opinions. Now, there are two different opinions. One is an adverse opinion, and it's adverse because Long Branch does not follow general accepted accounting principles, and neither does any municipality in the state of New Jersey. The state of New Jersey has its own accounting principles. So we are required by the GASB, which is the Government Accounting Standards Board, to let all the readers know around the country who may be looking at this report that don't expect it to look like what it's called a GAAP report because it's under different standards. However, under those standards, which is the New Jersey accounting principles, we have an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion that can be given to a set of financial statements. I'd also like to say that there were no comments and recommendations. The finance office is running a very good, tight ship. You have a lot of talent in that office, and I commend you for the quality that you keep there. Another set of reports, which is required in a government audit, pages 5 and 6 of the main report, is a report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance. And the purpose of this is to describe the scope of our testing and to identify any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal controls that are identified in the audit. And as I said, we did not find any deficiencies there. We are not required to render an opinion on the internal controls. We're not allowed to render an opinion because it's a financial statement audit and not an internal control audit. But again, we found no issues. The current fund, which is the main fund of the city, where all the taxes come in and all the money gets spent, those exhibits run through from pages 9 to 20. A quick synopsis there is that the city anticipated using $2.9 million of its surplus in the 2017 budget. During the year of 2017, the city returned $2.4 million. So that is about 1.3 million more than what you anticipated. So it added to your surplus, which is about $11 million a year end, which is over 15% of the budget, which is a strong position to be in. The factors that allowed the city to to have those results was that your tax collections exceeded budget by about $400,000. Your tax collection rate is steady around 98%. It's been that way for the past few years, and that's good to have a steady rate and not have things go up and down, which would cause your surplus to go up and down. Unspent money from your 2016 budget was about $2 million, and that lapsed back into surplus. And non-budget revenues which you don't budget for but do come in, was almost $1 million. So that added to the successful year. On pages 141 and 43 of the audit, there are additional reports which we are required to render. Report on compliance for each major program and internal control over compliance. And what this is in government audits, if you have grants that you expend over $750,000, of which you are much higher than that, there is something which is called a single audit that an auditor needs to do, and that is to perform audits specifically on the grant funds, not just on the financial statement as a whole. And we are to test grants which are considered major grants, and we did that. We expressed our opinion on compliance of each program, and from our testing, we determined that the city complied in all material respects with the types of compliance requirements referred to that could have a direct and material effect on each of your major federal programs for the year ended December 17. Again, we have to take a look at your controls and compliance over controls. We don't render an opinion on that. But again, with regard to the grants, as with the financial statements in general, we found nothing which rose to the level of any weakness. Along with the compliance reports on grants, we have a findings and question costs on pages 149 to 51. The federal awards, we audited the federal transit cluster and also the assistance to firefighters grants. Those were the major grants which required to be audited, and again, there were no findings. Within your package is also a governance letter which just also talks about the process of the audit. Something I've been adding to my reports for our clients, this has been new in the past few years. The Government Accounting Standards Board requires disclosure of pension liability. Again, you are a government which follows New Jersey accounting principles, so these liabilities do not reflect on your financial statement. They are only in the footnotes. If you were to look at the financial statement, let's say, of the School of Long Branch, you'll see these liabilities right on the balance sheet because they follow GAAP. So what this is telling you, and what the state has calculated, is that, and we have a few different years here just to show a trend, but at the end of 2017, your PERS pension, which is your pensions for all pension employees except for police and fire, that liability is about $31 million, and for the police and fire, that liability is $55 million. So what does that mean? That's just like a big mortgage out there. The actuaries calculate that. They calculate it every year. They have different assumptions. We give the different assumptions there. They have inflation rates which change from time to time. They change mortality rates. So you'll see this number fluctuate. This is not something you have to write a check out for. The state gives you, every year they give you a bill for your pension payment. They calculate what it is that you owe, and that's what you have. But transparency is important. The Government Accounting Standards Board requires it. Something new that'll be in your audit in following years is if you do give other post-retirement benefits, such as health benefits, that will also get calculated as to what your potential liability is there. So that'll be something new that'll get added next year. And that's my report.
Does anyone have any questions?
No.
Nice to have a clean report.
Yeah.
It's nice to give one.
Mr. Ellison, that 15% of the budget surplus that you said we have, how does that compares favorably with other communities, either statewide or those
Yeah,
that
it
you
does.
represent?
It's one of the things that I look at as far as the health of an entity is what's your surplus as a comparison to your budget. And I look at it because that's what the rating agencies look at. So when the rating agencies rate a municipality or government, there are a few things that they look at. They look at stability in government. They look at demographics. They look at financial stability, and they look at, well, how much money do you have that is in your savings, so to speak. And AA and above rated municipalities, governments, for the most part, have 15% or more in their surplus of their budget. They could have less and have something extraordinary that will give them a better rating. You'll have some municipalities who have more because they don't have the diversity, let's say, of a town like Long Branch. Commercial ratables is something which Moody's looks at. So if you're a pure residential community, that hurts you in your rating. In your case, you have a nice mix, but you also have a nice surplus, which I think that's where you want to stay. I don't think the city has a fund balance policy per se, but when you do get rating, one of the things that they ask is there a formal fund balance policy, which means you want to adhere to, let's not drop below a certain amount. And I don't think you have a formal one. Most towns don't have a formal one, but I think you have informally wanted to keep your surplus at a certain amount. And over the past few years, it's been growing. And right now, I think you're at a good spot.
What would be like an example of a formal fund balance policy?
Well, I mean, you would pass a resolution saying that your goal is to have a fund balance that will not fall below X percent of your budget. It's not a mandate. It's not something you have to do because obviously, you know, I mean, you have a good surplus here, and if we have 25 feet of snow this summer and we got to spend this winter, and we spend a lot of money, well, then that's what's going to happen. But you want to stay in that range. And if you have a policy like that, and Moody's looks at your history and they say, you know, they've been between 13, 17% for the past 5 or 6 years, they're adhering to it. They are doing what they say they're going to do. It doesn't bind you. It doesn't bind future governments. It's just you acknowledging that this is an important thing and you'd like to do it.
So I join you in congratulating our finance folks. We had a meeting, Mike, thank you so much for meeting with Chairwoman Wittes and myself, and I understand that this is not the first time that they've had such an outstanding report, that there are many years in a row. So kudos to you and to your staff. One real simple question. Non-budget revenues, what are some examples of that?
Mike, you want to chime in? You know the details better than I do.
Non-budget revenues are considered unanticipated in the budget.
Like cell tower fees, are they in there for you?
We don't have any cell tower fees.
Okay. I can find it for you.
It's detail and earn it. It's all kinds of different things. Beach raking, we don't anticipate count as revenue.
So is it overages or different sources?
No, it's just stuff that isn't anticipated as an actual revenue in the budget. If we sell a piece of property during the year, unanticipated, it's considered non-budget revenue.
Last year, the big items were a property sale, park fees, recreation. You have money come over from the housing authority.
Yes.
Those are the major ones.
Okay.
And it's good to have that. If you have revenues that are really not predictable, it's advisable not to budget for them, because if you say, oh well, we sold property for $200,000, so let's put it in next year's budget, but you don't have a property to sell, so then you'll be balancing your budget on revenues which you don't have a good idea is going to come in. Yeah. So it's a nice thing to have to add to your surplus over the following year. If your tax collection rate doesn't hold up like you think it will, it'll help you balance going forward.
Okay.
Mike or Bob, do you know what the typically the non-budget revenue is typically in the city? Is it around there, or is this?
It fluctuates each year, but it's between 800 and 1.2 a year.
Yeah. Right, which, when you look at your budget, you have a $50-60 million budget. So, you know, so as a percentage, it's 2% of your revenue. So it really is a miscellaneous item. It's hard to say $1 million is miscellaneous, but when you throw it up against 60 million, it is a small percentage.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Bob, I'm just curious, with the analysis of the pension plan valuations, what was the big uptick on all these things in 2016?
Yeah.
If I recall, I'm not an actuary, but the actuaries, you know, if you just take a look at like inflation, right? So that's what I wanted to show you there. So the inflation rate has dropped, which a lot, right? That's about 8 basis points. So it went from 3.08% to 2 points. So how they inflated the liability. The investment rate of return has gone down, which actually would actually increase the liability, but it did not. And then something called the discount rate, which is the present value of the liability. It's a complicated math equation how they do it, but the higher the discount rate, the lower the liability. So they're more sure of what the liabilities are going forward. It's basically that. And then I'm pretty sure that in 17 they use a new they use a new mortality table from what they had before, and they adjusted that. So they're always adjusting their assumptions. So they would, and it's a frustrating thing because actuaries. I happen to have a cousin who's an actuary, and I tell him that by the time we know he's right or wrong, he's dead, and we're all dead because it's such a long, you know, it's used by insurance companies in order to determine liability. So I don't have a great answer for you there, except that they significantly changed the inflation rate, and that in itself would move the numbers. So it's not to say that next year the numbers might change again, depending on how they view the future of the economy.
Mm-hmm. The last question I had is, I know Dr. Sully was always concerned about the ticketing in the court, and that seems to have been
that came out
taken
good.
care of now.
Yep. We finally nailed that one down, Mary Jane. I know we had that for a few years. It's all good.
Well, I'd like to thank you for coming this evening, and also Mr. Martin and your staff for all your hard work and for presenting such a great report. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Okay, the next item is no parking, South Lake Drive. Lieutenant Shirley and Mr. Hayes.
Yes, Madam President. You had asked us to take another look at the situation on South Lake Drive after a resident complained yet again about the parking on the weekends. So I asked traffic to go out and take a look. Lieutenant Shirley did a survey, took some photographs, and provided this map with you, and I'll let him explain it to you.
How are you guys? So when we were first asked to do this, it was actually by the patrol units because during the summertime, vehicles park on both sides of the road, and there's not enough room for people to get by. Even more dangerous, what happens is people are walking in the roadway between the cars. So as you go along towards Ocean Avenue, there's only 27.6 feet across of roadway, and in a standard travel lane, you need at least 11 feet across, which leaves you, after parking on both sides of the road, you have a little more than 5 feet, depending on where it changes. As you go up, it actually appears as though it gets wider, but it doesn't. We measured it, it actually gets smaller by 0.1, because what happens is the curbs disappear, but people have started running it over, and it's become like a mud area, but the roadway actually is shorter itself. So in looking at this, a lot of the things that we think about, has to do with eliminating and not just moving the problem, so we don't have to do this twice with you. And the reason that we went all the way up to Elbron Avenue is we actually did traffic counts with our equipment. And over 80% of the vehicles are either coming or going to Elbron Avenue. So by, say, let's doing no parking 200 feet, but stopping before Elbron Avenue, all it's going to do is move the problem a little bit west, but the traffic is still going to be there until we get past Elbron Avenue, which is why we're recommending going through the intersection of Elbron, which will almost act as like a relief valve and get all the traffic out of there, and then they can park on the other side of the lake from that point on safely.
Okay. I have a question, because I've driven down there and I've actually walked there this weekend. On the south side of South Lake Drive, there's parking there, and then, of course, along the lake. Isn't there like a ordinance that you can't park from, is there a distance where you can't park from the corner of the?
Well, from the stop sign, there's in the state law there is, but even with that keeping back, the problem's actually past that. I actually counted in 25 feet from there and did the widths because of that reason. I mean, we could always ticket the 1 or 2 cars, but that doesn't solve our problem.
And
it's not a turning problem, it's a problem of getting down the street.
And so if we were to put signage up, they still would not be able to park the first, would you say 200 feet?
Well, no, so on, which side are you talking about?
On the south side.
South side, from the stop sign, they'll go 25 feet back, it'll be no parking, but that's there now, they don't do it now. But then the lake side is what we're suggesting, to leave the resident parking on their side and take the lakeside parking away.
And is the width of that road the same as the north side?
No, it's actually wider on the other side, but like I said, at one point the curb disappears, so it appears to be wider.
Yeah, it appeared to me
It does,
to be,
but yeah.
and it appeared to me after the curve to be wider, which is why I was questioning why all the way down to Elbron Avenue.
Yeah, and as we looked at it, and like I said, we were just there today and we measured it, and it actually is, it's a little bit shorter, it's not wider.
All right, thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Is this gonna be seasonal?
I'm sorry?
Is it gonna be seasonal?
The ordinance right now is not seasonal.
It's all year.
That's the way it's written now, yes.
But isn't the problem we really have in the summer?
Well, it's exacerbated in the summer, but the width is the width, so we were asked to prepare it this way. That would be up to you guys if you want to do it seasonal.
Yeah, because your major problem is just in the season, in the summer. You don't have that problem in the winter, do we?
Well, and again, so, if you got an October day where it was nice out and people did park this way, it would be an issue for that day. It's not going to obviously happen every day, but if we identified a problem and it's because of this, not because of a influx of an area, it's actually a width of the road problem. Yeah. We would suggest obviously correcting the problem.
I have the same problem in my house every time there's a school event. You know what I mean? And every time there's an event, we don't expect to change the rules, you know what I mean?
Right.
So.
Yeah. Once we identify the problem, it's hard to go back and forth of seasons and why and changing it. It's better to say we've identified a problem and this is the solution.
Okay, thank you.
So how is this information going to be communicated to the person who brought this up at the last meeting? Just to, just to kind of close the loop so people know that when they bring up issues, they're being addressed and everything. I think the question might be just as much to us.
Yeah, I don't have her information, but I can tell you she's probably a walker or lives in the area, and once we do the markouts and put the signs up and paint the curb, she's going to know.
Yeah.
But if I had her information, I would contact her.
Well, we should have, she spoke at a council meeting, so we have her name and address, so
Yeah.
we certainly could write to her.
Good, good.
Are you going to prepare something in writing in a proposed ordinance? How are we going to do
We've already
this?
submitted it, correct?
I think we have it. We have it already?
Ready to go for next meeting.
Okay,
Great.
good.
Thank you.
Good.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
That's it? Thank you.
Anita, could you bring your mic down just a little bit? Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the employee recognition. We spoke about it, last 2 weeks ago, and I sent everyone some information on what I had pulled up, and I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it. And then, Mr. Renone, would you like to talk about employee recognition?
Only, Council President, the short conversation you and I had, my understanding is that this is a recognition program, that the proposal is to do some kind of plaque and to recognize them. I don't have any issue with doing that, as long as the details of the program are well established, so everybody understands what they are. And this, this is really more of a Kevin question than a legal question as to how it is that the program will work. The only thing that I caution the Council President is that there is state laws and DCA regulations about giving any kind of rewards to employees. So we'd have to be careful if that was the plan, but if all we're doing is recognizing them and putting their name on the plaque, then I have no issues.
Okay, thank you.
And if you want, I can try to see whether or not I can get you some examples of other programs.
Okay, great. That would be awesome. Any questions or input from anyone?
No. Anything, Benita?
My only comment is I think perhaps there could be some employees who feel like they're better than others and do a better job, and they're not going to be recognized. I don't want any hard feelings over this, that's all.
Right. I think if we, ask the department heads,
Yeah, that's what I was my
I'd like to
idea.
discuss it further with the department heads and Mr. Hayes, and, and also go over some of the guidelines that other municipalities are doing and come up with a plan and hopefully get this going, by November 1st.
Okay.
That would be, and, my idea was putting a plaque up with their names, or we can put their picture up in City Hall for that whole month, and, they have that at Monmouth Medical Center as well, so I thought maybe that would be nice. So if anyone has any other ideas, please.
I kind of like that idea, isn't that what you do right now at the school?
Yes.
Like a teacher of the month,
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty good idea.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so if you have any other ideas, let us know, and then we'll get more information to everyone for the next meeting.
I guess my next question would be, who's going to prepare it?
Prepare what?
This whole,
Oh, we will. Mr. Renone and I will prepare the guidelines and
Okay.
all that, and Kathy and Mayor.
Mostly Kathy.
Yeah. So, any other?
Are we considering one employee per department, or one employee for the city for the month?
Whatever you prefer. It's open to discussion. We can do 2 employees a month if you'd like, but then that would not be employee of the month, so we'd have to do we could.
you're going to have
depending
a
on-
committee that would
Yeah, I think
select them?
we should have a committee to select. I think once we speak with the department heads, we can determine if we're going to recognize one from each department for that month or just one employee. What do you prefer?
I was just, I like one from each department, and then, as we've done over the years in the school district, and one employee of the year.
Oh, okay. That's a good idea.
Yeah, the more people we can involve and have them feeling good about recognition, it's just going to be better, I think. So I agree with what Billy's saying.
Okay. Like one from each department?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fine.
Yeah, and it might be nice even if, I don't know how we're going to pay for this, but, you do a little, once a month, you do a little breakfast reception, something that, you can take pictures and really meet with the people and.
Yeah, my thought was to have them actually come to a council meeting.
Oh, good.
And receive their awards.
Yeah, good,
So-
even better.
That's a great idea. The only problem with that is, we have some departments that are real small. I have 3 or 4 employees, or, there's some departments, some are real big ones and some are small departments. I don't know how they'll work with the small departments. We have to give them, some of them might only have 10 or 12 employees. That means every year they're gonna get some. Devices versus the one that has 100 employees, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
So that's something that we have to consider too.
Okay, we'll talk about that as well. Mary, do you have any comments?
I would, I just did a little research on my own, and I would suggest that we, you know, we have a further discussion on it, but everybody perhaps do a little more research to come up with a bunch of ideas in terms of just the criteria, like just 3 things here alone. It says setting up rules to select the employee of the month. This was a different, it says like, does an employee need to have been working for a minimum period of time at the company before being eligible to win? Can an employee win back-to-back titles, or should there be a break between wins? Are part-time employees just as eligible as full-time ones? So I think, you know, those are just like 3 simple questions, but there's probably a lot more that we maybe collectively together can think about and
Great. And again, we'll check what other municipalities have been doing, and I think that would be a good guideline for us. Okay. Anyone else? No? Thank you. Okay. Now the next one are the reports from City Council. Okay. Dr. Sally, do you have anything to report?
I had the pleasure of attending a meeting on Monday with Kushner and Company discussing the proposed pier. I have prepared a memo for all of you because it's not possible to show the drawing. So I would just like to say the highlights of it. There's one for John. And Billy. Got it? Okay.
One more there.
It was a very interesting meeting. I'm sorry. I had an opportunity to meet the Kushner family and company. And I think the bottom line, Mr. Kushner said that they would give us all their studies on how the facts and figures were derived at. And I think he was very open and very honest with what he said. And I'm excited. I hope we get to see it, in my lifetime anyway. But it was a very interesting meeting. I put the facts and figures on the paper. You all can read it. The next meeting I went to was today with Mr. Hayes. I went to Monmouth University to sit on their task force, of which we celebrated 20 years. Kevin and I are charter members of that organization. Back when Long Branch had a lot of problems with the rentals, it was a very busy task force. Not anymore. But every 6 months, Monmouth University prepares a fact sheet for us as to how many students were involved and what the disciplinary action were. So you can read it yourself. It's a task force made up of the different departments, West Long Branch, Allenhurst, Steele, West Ocean Township, and Long Branch. We are very, very well represented on the task force because we were the ones who more or less, we had the problems, so we had to help solve them. Originally, I will say that my personal opinion is I don't think Monmouth University was very cooperative, but they have come around, they work with us. Kevin has a meet and greet for the brand new students, tells them what it's like to live off campus, and I think Long Branch is in good shape. However, we have a couple of other surrounding communities that probably could learn from us. And so with that, the task force is a very interesting composition of people. You have the Director of Government Affairs, who is now the chair. It was Dean Nagy, but she has stepped down. And good people on it. And I also met this morning the new business administrator of West Long Branch. So I got around and I got to see and meet, and I would ask you if anybody's involved to come to the next meeting, which is the 1st of October in the Student Center. You all are welcome, and you come and see what's done. Kevin, you want to answer anything?
No, I think you covered it really well, Dr. Sully. It was a good meeting. It's a great committee. It does some good stuff, and I would agree with you that Monmouth University has really come around, and they seem to really care now more about the neighborhoods than they ever did. And when the meeting notices come out, I'll send them to Kathy to extend to the full mayor and council.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Dangler?
Yes, thank you. I also attended the meeting with the Kushner, and as Dr. Selly said, they were very thorough. I was very impressed with the engineer and his extensive background in regards to the different ferry and the piers actually that he's built. He went through the different types of piers that could be built that could withstand Hurricane Sandy. My only concern, and I did have to leave a little earlier, but I would have asked about the pollution from, I guess, the diesel fuel that the ferry would use, and how that would affect the people that are swimming on a daily basis. And also, the last thing that I would have asked, and I'll ask at the next meeting, is besides the influx of traffic in regard to people parking and using the ferry, if we were to agree on the ferry, how would that benefit the city of Long Branch? That's all. Thank you.
Well, the traffic and the parking I addressed in the memo.
Well, no.
And you hadn't seen it.
I haven't seen it.
Right. Okay. So you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Vieira?
I want to thank Mary Jane for filling in for me for that meeting, which I missed. It's tough for me to make meetings because my job doesn't allow me to. But I did review the Mary Jane's notes. They're very good notes. I did review the pier. It's a little different than the last design I saw, because the last design they had like a radius. It's a little different, and it's kind of long, and it doesn't have, it's like one empty pier all the way down to you get to the ferry. So it was something different than I was expecting. And that's about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Rhodes?
So I think three things. One, I mentioned this last time, and I kind of need an answer tonight or very soon, because the person who sponsors this wants to know who will be involved. This has to do with New Jersey Public Media, it's NJTV, and they're hosting a panel discussion. This is September 20th. I think it's 6 to 8, and it's going to be right here at the Brookdale Center. And the topic, it's going to be a panel discussion. Let me just read to you the way they described it. NJTV hosts a panel discussion about the impact of gentrification, in other words, redevelopment, restoration of New Jersey communities, joined by local officials, housing and development experts, and social service organizations. Will have a candid discussion of how neighborhoods are transformed in favor of economic growth, the impact of that redevelopment can have on residents' quality of life, and policies that can help people adapt to redevelopment and more. We'll explore economic policies, city planning procedures, the challenges and opportunities of evolving neighborhoods, and how communities are working to increase long-term residents' housing options. There are going to be they have requested that the mayor be on the panel, and they have asked that one other council person be on the panel, and that the rest of the council be there in the audience on hand for questions and discussion, as the evening goes along. So my question is, if before the evening is over, if we could select, or if somebody wants to volunteer right now to be on the panel with the mayor, that would be wonderful. And, for all of us, just to put it on our calendars for September 20th. Anyone want to volunteer? This always happens at meetings. You want to say?
I have a question for Kathy. Do we have to advertise that if we're all at that?
No, I don't believe so, Mr. Reno.
I don't think so. I'm not really sure I understand what it is. It's some kind of public forum?
Yeah, yeah.
Is there going to be more people there than just the mayor and council?
Yep, absolutely.
More people on the panel?
Yeah.
I think it's a public meeting.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, if, before we leave tonight, if we could just select that person so I can get back to the person who's putting that together, that would be great. Several of us, the mayor, the council president, myself, Carl Turner, thanks to Carl, I don't think he's here yet. Is he back there? There you go, there you go. Carl, thank you so much for attending this meeting. It was with the Department of Community Affairs. They actually provide free assistance to municipalities in terms of helping them with planning, helping them with a number of different services. I think we had a really good discussion with them. I just want to make sure that we follow up. So however we do that, I don't know if the discussion needs to happen here or...
We'll reach out to them and set up another meeting in the very near future.
Okay. Okay. So that was something that was, I think, real beneficial for us. I'm going to just touch on the 100-day plan again in terms of how we want to manage this. Jack, you and I had a conversation yesterday in terms of, you know, an update on where we are with some of the, you know, the items that are on the 100-day plan. So again, if we can discuss how we keep this current and how we want to, I know, Jack, we talked about possibly a meeting to go over some things. I think, what is it, 60 days, a 60-day update or whatever. But I think we need to have a discussion in terms of how we keep that going. Okay? Can I do one more last fast one? No, okay, no, too much time. Go ahead. I'm done.
Go ahead.
Yeah? You know, there's, just in terms of partnership with the link, this, we did this one time already, and I think it's an opportunity for us because, as a matter of fact, one of the things on the 100-day plan is responding to residents' concerns. As it is listed in the link, complaints and comments. And the first one that we responded to, it's just the little quips that happened in the, I think, the community update. It was an issue that the mayor immediately addressed, and in the next edition of the link, we put in that, you know, how it was addressed. There's another one that was just listed that I think is something that we can very easily respond to. So I just want to bring this up, that if we can pick up on some of these things and almost make this a pattern, that if there are some things that are, you know, that we see, and I'm just picking the link as a good example with this, that we can respond to and then respond in the link. I think it's a positive thing in terms of, you know, our attention to people's concerns and our response to it. So I have that information and I can share it with everybody.
And we can utilize our website for that as well.
Oh, good idea.
And Facebook.
Yep, good idea. Okay.
Mayor Plum?
Just to piggyback on what Anita said, the suggestion box that we put in the back is getting a lot of use. And so Kathy has been responding. We've been forwarding it to the, you know, the appropriate department. And I don't know if you got it today, but I had asked Kathy to make copies for everybody so you know what those questions were. And if we don't have a total answer, that we're going to be looking into it. So I just wanted to point that out. Just in terms of some of the items on the 100-day plan, we had another good meeting with the shop Long Branch people and internally with our group here. So we're moving forward with that. And we also had a meeting with Sustainable Jersey, so we want to pick that up again, and we were fortunate enough to have representatives from our own environmental commission, again, our internal staff who I'd like to thank, as well as some other environmental groups who attended. So we're very happy about that, and
Right.
we're moving forward with that. Thank you.
We're not that far as having.
I'm sorry?
We're not that far as having, you know, having what we need to have the
No,
certification,
we're good.
right?
Yeah.
So we're in good shape.
Yeah.
That's great.
And there were just, you know, a lot of new ideas that, you know, we might want to just implement here to the community as well.
Thank you. And I was with Anita, so she kind of filled us in on what I was going to say, so thank you. Okay.
Well, one other meeting that happened, Rose, was just with the Family Addiction Network too, that, so, you know, the mayor and I were, and just trying to, again, an initiative that we really expressed interest in is trying to do something in terms of the opioid epidemic and how we can support them as best we can. So we're trying to figure that one out.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, if I might add too, I just wanted to thank Dr. Vogt for, she touched upon this access to the state planning group who provides free services to us. I mean, we spent significant money in the past doing that, and according to them, those are services that could all be provided to us free of charge.
Right.
So thank you, Anita.
Yeah,
Good.
thank you.
Good.
Very encouraging. Okay. Let me see. Next is the review of the regular meeting agenda. Any questions?
I just had one question. This is in general, and it has to do with the expense reports at the end, you know, that we get. And just my question, Mike, this is probably to you. What are all the levels of review that happen before that report is published? You know.
The bill list? The bill list.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and again, like this even came up in our meeting with Mike, to be able to pick out things that are really, I don't know, you know, that stand out versus the normal kind of expenses that certainly I wouldn't know the flow yet. So Mike, that was my question of what's the level of review before that gets published?
Well, the purchase is initiated by the department internally and assigned an account number. It goes to purchasing, where it's the purchase is actually executed. We have centralized purchasing signed off by the purchasing agent as to the validity of the purchase, and then it's signed off by the comptroller, myself, and then after the goods are received, it's signed off by the department head, and then presented to you for payment.
So anything that seems excessive or out of line or whatever just kind of raises eyeballs has a number of places where it could be questioned along the way.
There are several places for questioning, and it is in line with the internal controls that we've put in place.
Yeah, good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
And one thing Anita might want to do, which some of us have done in the past, you know, when there's these sort of large numbers that are just identified by, you know, a couple of words or so forth, you could always ask Kathy or Mike, and I've always found that they get the material to us same day. And what I mean is, you know, if there's a $1,000 charge, you can ask for those individual bills, and they're broken down by.
Absolutely, much greater detail than what's on this form. It's strictly a summary, and we have all the individual payments in our office.
Yeah, okay, good, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I need a motion to close.
So motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to adopt a resolution to go into executive session for the following items: contract negotiations, attorney-client privilege, and personnel matter.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Dangler?
Yes.
Mr. Viera?
Yes.
Dr. Vogt?
Yes.
Dr. Selly?
Yes.
Mrs. Wittes?
Yes. Thank you.